This is Kristen.
And I'm Steve, and you are listening to Cycling Together, a show all about things bikes, riding, and riding together.
We really waited to the last minute to get this show done this week.
The very last minute.
Yep. Since it's due tomorrow. Of course, it's only due in my head.
It is, and you came up with a good topic last week, and as soon as you said it, I said, I can just run with that.
You run with that.
So, yes, you actually might hear me talking more and more and more than you ever have this episode because I can just, I'll let my mouth run on this one.
Right. Yep. We're going to be talking about what bicycle frames are made of, and it is inspired by a rough month at the shop in that you had not one, but two broken frames.
No, I had one come in.
Yes.
And we know of another one. Right? And it wasn't even the first one that came in was just he brought it to me to ship back to the company. It wasn't even bought from me.
And we're not going to talk about those right now.
Yep.
That's the topic for today. What are bike frames made of?
Okay.
Why we pick what we pick, how they break, how to care for them. But before we get to that, how do you like my new hat?
Ooh, I like it. You got that hat and I thought was really old.
Yes.
Because either they chose a white fuzzy material in the logo there of the PMC hat.
Right.
That is either pre-dirtified or it is...
I bought it dirty.
They chose just the right color to make it look like it's just slightly dingy.
Yeah, it's that same material they have like on a Letterman jacket. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I bought it for myself because it is my 10th Pan Mass Challenge year. They even sent me a sticker, which means I'm going to stress out about where to put it because I have sticker FOMO, which is I don't like to put it on a thing because I might want to put it on a different thing. I need like 10 of these. Anyway, and the reason I bring it up is we are going to PMC Unpaved.
In a few days.
Mm-hmm. And this will be your fourth PMC year and my 10th PMC year.
Is this the
I'm really
fourth
excited.
year of Unpaved?
The fourth year of Unpaved.
Okay, so yes, we've done it every year for Unpaved.
Yeah. But speaking of Unpaved, we were doing a last training ride on Sunday. Where did we go? Where were we on Sunday?
We went to a rail trail. The longest one in Rhode Island was 19 miles end to end.
Yeah. And it had a pretty good ascent and then descent back. The reason I'm bringing it up is there were a ton of people on it, on bikes, many of them on e-bikes. We'll use bikes in quotes. And not a lot of them wearing helmets.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And what did we see near the end of our...
Oh, yes. A guy on the ground bloodied. You said there was a lot of blood on the ground. I wasn't
There was
looking
a puddle.
That. There was a puddle.
There was a puddle of blood on the ground.
Obviously, the woman who was with him, I think, was a relative because the way she talked to him about sitting,
what did you say?
Sitting his ass down.
Sit your ass down or I'll kill you.
Yes, I think it was that. Yes, the ambulance is on the way. Yep.
Yeah, and it's really tempting not to wear helmets on a rail trail like that, but I did look it up, and it turns out that riders wearing helmets have a 52% lower risk of a severe traumatic brain injury when compared to unhelmeted cyclists.
It looked like the blood came from his head, and we know head wounds bleed a lot.
Well, riders wearing helmets have a 44% lower risk of death. They have a 31% lower risk of facial fractures, and they significantly reduce their likelihood of having brain surgery in the event of an accident. So this is my PSA, which is if you have friends who think that it's not cool to wear helmets, get on that.
Okay.
Anyway, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about bike frames.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Talking about what frames are made of. And here's what inspired me. So as we were talking about, we had two frames that one we knew of that cracked and one that was brought into your shop so you could ship it back to the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking as the non-technical person about what frames are made of and why we choose the materials we do.
Well, we're going to go through all of the different frame materials. And we're going to kind of go to a little bit of history, a little bit of background, a little bit of why you're buying that frame. And all frame materials can fail. So every single frame material. All right. So we're going to talk about steel frames, aluminum frames, titanium frames, and carbon frames. And all 4 of them will have a failure rate. So, it's unfortunate, but it's not common, but it happens.
Right.
Some people are just going to have it happen.
The 2 frames we're talking about, we're not really talking about. They just inspired this conversation. And we'll get to it at some point because I was asking.
They were both titanium.
Oh, they were both titanium. That's right. Because I was asking, what should I be doing? What should I? But we'll get to that. So you want to start from the top?
Yeah, let's start. Okay.
Steel.
I'm going to run my motor mouth here on this, I think. So, and I am not a material scientist. So if I do say something wrong, please let me know.
Yeah.
But we're going to be just sort of really pulling down to the depths of my knowledge here off the cuff, and we're going to be going all over this.
Okay.
All right. So steel. The original frame material, basically. Where all bikes were for decades upon decades upon decades.
That makes sense.
Right up through right up till now, but the majority of bikes were steel right up through like the 80s.
Okay.
Right. And we'll sort of say enthusiast bikes. So steel is an alloy. So a lot of time if you hear the term alloy, usually everybody's referring to aluminum of some sort. But all these metals are alloys. An alloy means it is a combination of different elements, different metals to
I'm so
form.
Glad you said, because I was like,
yes,
am I supposed to know what alloy means?
To form the material, right?
Okay.
So, and for steel, they're all some sort of form of high carbon steel, but the most common that you might hear, and a lot of people will recognize the name, is chromoly.
Okay. Oh,
right? So chromium molybdenum. Oh, that's a hard word to say. Yeah.
Easy for you to say. It's okay. We're not even going to worry about that.
And so the combination of those 2 metals into the steel, which is, a form of, it has iron, and steel is an alloy of iron.
Okay.
That creates the properties that frame builders like to use for their frames.
And what are some of those? So
steel can be combined and formed into a frame in different ways.
Okay.
In different welding techniques. And there's also lugged. That was sort of how frames were originally made, where there'd be a cast lug at the junctions, and then the tubes were inserted into those lugs and then brazed, which is essentially putting metal into those.
Is a
lugs.
lug like a coupling?
Yeah, like a lug is like a coupling. Okay, but
on a bike
they're called lugs.
I'm here to interpret bike to English.
Right.
Okay,
there we go.
So on some bikes they had like a coupling.
Yep.
Like if you were well, I'm gonna use English for a second. Like if I was doing plumbing, I'd have 2 PVC pipes and they have a thing that connects them, right? Similar to that.
Yes.
And then they can weld them together. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's one way.
We'll use welding as a catch-all for joining the pipes. Sure.
Okay.
Joining the tubes.
Yes, we do not need to go that deep into how the heat was applied.
Right. And so then the manufacturers who made these steel tubes, if you're a fan of... what's the show we watch?
Forged in Fire.
Okay. So if you're a fan of Forged in Fire, you kind of learn all about steels and the different types of steels, and the heat treatment is the big thing, right? And so
love Forged in Fire.
These steels are all heat treated by the companies that make them.
Okay.
And
also known as tempering.
Yes, right. So
see, I do watch that show.
Right. And so based on the alloy of the steel and how it was heat treated, then certain techniques have to be used to weld the material together. And so not all steels can be combined together like.
Okay. But to go back to why the builders like it, they like it because...
Well, steel is an easy material to work with.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
You can fix mistakes.
Yep.
You can decouple welds. You can, it's not hard to drill your shapes through the tubes and so forth with normal machining shop tools. And it's cheap and readily available.
Okay.
And so that's basically why. And that's why today custom frame builders tend to work in metals and steels.
Okay.
Because they can do all of these customizations fairly easily. I'm going to air quote because it takes a lot of skill and technique.
Right. But
yes.
Compared to like laying carbon or when
Correct.
we get to that.
Right. Let's get into a little bit more of the background, I guess, in terms of the company. So the big names that you might have heard are Reynolds, Columbus, True Temper, and Tange, which is spelled Tange.
I
It's
think
a Japanese
it's safe
company,
to say,
and not many people realize it's
I
pronounced
was
Tange.
going to say, I'm safe to say you lost a good percentage of the audience at True Temper and Tange. Well, you lost me. Yes, Reynolds and Columbus I've heard of.
Yep.
Surly is what?
No.
No? What is mine made out of now?
Your Surly's made of steel,
Okay.
but they're not a steel manufacturer.
Oh.
They just are a bike brand that makes out of steel.
So you're saying Reynolds makes the steel?
Reynolds makes the steel.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow, we're going deep. Got it.
And it's not the same Reynolds as, say, like the wheel company.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say as the aluminum foil company.
Oh, actually, that might be the case. I don't know that for certain, but they might be subsidiaries of each other.
Okay.
When the steel tubes, you can have straight gauge tubes. So imagine just a straight steel pipe.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
The wall thickness is the same throughout.
Yes.
And that's just that would be considered a straight gauge pipe.
Okay.
And then what they can do is they call butting. And so when you have a butted tube, they actually take away material usually in the middle of the tube. So the middle of the tube is thinner and the ends are thicker where they're joined together with the next tube. And then other companies would try to do sort of funky things. So Columbus SLX tubing, which is what I lusted after in the 80s, that is actually rifled. So it has a spiral pattern down the inside, and it's actually like inside on the metal, and that actually made it stiffer and stronger.
Okay, I'm going to make you take a step back for me. Mm-hmm. So Reynolds and Columbus make the tubes.
Yes.
And they make bikes?
They do not
Or
make
they
bikes.
sell the tubes to somebody else to make the bikes with. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. I've caught up with you.
Okay.
Got it.
They sell the tubing that frame builders companies make the bikes with.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
My steel Kona, which was handmade in California in '93. That's made out of Tange tubing.
Are you telling me that when you were in high school, you were lusting after a certain type of steel?
Yes.
Not a certain type of bike. You
were
like,
Italian.
I love
Italian
that
steel
Reynolds
bikes.
steel, baby.
Yeah.
That's what you're like, look at that tube.
Yeah.
It's been rifled.
Oh, yeah. And they had the little sticker that said, Columbus SL or Columbus SLX. And, and so you'd meet riders and you'd look down and you're like, oh, yeah. You'd have a little bit of sticker envy on what steel tubing they had. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So most people recognize steel frames is because the tubes are so skinny.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
And nowadays, when you compare it to everything else, they're very skinny. They almost look weird and out of place in some cases to people because of how large aluminum and carbon frames are. And steel can be tuned to how you want it to ride. And so the diameter of a tube, and we're going to get into this with each with each material here, but the diameter of the tubing reflects the stiffness of the tube, as well as sort of the different shapes and profiles that they give it, like that rifling inside and so forth. Or they'll ovalize one section at the end in one direction because the forces are in a certain way.
Can I have a sidebar?
Yes.
stiffness.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want my bike to be stiff?
Yes, but not too stiff. So there is, and it depends on what you're doing. So
Okay.
there is, there's an Italian maker called Pegoretti, and he made a bike called the Big Legged Emma. And so this was out of steel, and it was out of really big tubing, really fat tubing, and it was unbelievably stiff.
Okay.
So steel actually does have a reputation for riding really nice, because they had found this sort of magical tubing size and shape and profile that just made it it soaked up the road very well.
Okay.
Even back in the day with narrower tires.
Right.
Right.
Skinny tires.
Right. So, but yeah, like that Big Legged Emma was very, very stiff. It was kind of a criterium bike where you didn't really care about long distance comfort. You just wanted out of the corner hammering power and stiffness.
Yep. That's what I'm always looking for.
Right.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. So that is sort of where steel is at. It's still used today. It is actually an excellent material. The downsides, as you were saying, it can rust. So some frame builders will treat the inside of the tubes where it's bare, and they'll coat that to help prevent rusting. Surly does that now.
Oh, okay.
And you can also spray inside with certain like T9 actually, which some people use as lubricants. Is actually really a corrosion inhibitor.
Oh.
So that works really well to prevent rust inside tubes. And they do actually make stainless steel. If people are asking, do they make stainless steel frames? Yes, Reynolds makes a stainless steel tubing set.
Oh. If I have a Surly.
Yep.
I have my Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be checking for rust on her? Or should I be regularly spraying stuff inside her?
Not unless it's a situation where you think the bike is getting wet often and doesn't have a chance to dry. If you live near the ocean, then steel can be more of a problem.
Okay.
I mean, everybody knows about metals near the ocean. But otherwise, it doesn't tend to be too much of a problem. If you scratch the frame through the paint, through the primer, down to the bare metal, then touch that up as quickly as you can, because it will rust there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how does it, since we're talking about braking, if it gets a big hit, right, it's repairable? Like, what's its kind of repairability?
Yes. A skilled frame builder can repair a steel frame. Not every break in every spot of the bike. And then, of course, the cost is up to you whether it's worth it. Right. And in the area where it has to be repaired, obviously, it's going to lose all its paint and so forth. Yeah. Because that has to be a strip back. But it is repairable. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And repairable in the way you're replacing the section of tubes.
Well, what I was kind of thinking is
broken.
Sounds like it would be maybe easier to fix.
You're not
in some cases a steel because of all the things you just talked about, being able to weld it and
right. Yes. And should we go on? You want to continue on to titanium since it's also a metal first?
Yeah, sure. When did they start using titanium?
Titanium, really, I'm going to say reaching back, I guess 90s is when titanium came into play. Yep. And Russia is actually a very large, they have a lot of titanium mines. So they were, I believe in the 90s, they were providing, all of a sudden there was a flood of titanium into the market. And so companies were starting to experiment more with it. Okay. Yeah. So titanium is very much like steel. A lot of the properties that we talked about with steel apply to titanium. You can have straight gauge tubes. You can butt the tubes to make them lighter. You can shape the tubes to make them stiffer. You can oversize them and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Titanium has the big advantage of being corrosion proof, basically.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that why you see so many more naked titanium
Correct.
bikes where
Yeah.
most steel bikes are painted?
There was a time where I think a lot of not a lot, where people tended to paint titanium frames.
Yeah.
Because they wanted a certain color, and I think it's kind of come back from that. I rarely see people paint titanium now, and just leave it bare.
Yeah.
And of course you can finish it. You'll see like sort of that dull gray titanium. You can polish titanium up to a mirror finish where it looks like it's chromed.
Yep.
It takes like tens upon tens of man hours to get that kind of polish. Maybe even 100 man hours to get that. It's a highly labor intensive process.
You
but
buy
buffing and so forth with different abrasive grits over
ointments
time
and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like going for a facial.
And now titanium alloys, there's generally two. There's what's called, you might see on the sticker, 6432, and that is aluminum and vanadium. And so that's what's mixed in with the titanium to give it the properties and the welding capabilities that are needed to make it into bike frames. Most of all those titanium alloys were developed right here in Massachusetts.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Decades ago. Yeah, for military and aerospace applications.
It seems like a lot of the boutique brands use titanium.
Titanium is a great material. It also costs more than steel. Yeah, we should add that.
Okay.
Because I think there's a extra value added to the customer that they perceive. Titanium bikes tend to be looked at as a lifetime bike. The fatigue resistance is super high.
Okay.
It's higher than the steel. It doesn't corrode. If you get a scratch in it, you just take a Scotch-Brite pad and buff it out, and it's so for those reasons. Now, the funny thing is that of course things change in the bike industry. So if you have a titanium frame from a couple decades ago, it is probably still perfectly good. But do you want a frame that still only fits 23 millimeter tires, that doesn't have disc brakes?
Right.
So that might now have the wrong geometry that you need.
From the standpoint of the quote unquote lifetime.
The lifetime, right.
Bike. I mean, but any frame is going to, any bike you buy.
Yes, but we're going to get into aluminum next, and aluminum will never be that because it will fall apart before.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, that's, so do we have any titanium bikes?
I do.
You have a Le Mans,
yes.
right? That is partially titanium?
In between steel, titanium, and then aluminum carbon, let's talk about the hybrid period.
Well, do you want to talk about the hybrid period yet? Or do you want to talk about aluminum first and then how they all come together in a...
Sure.
We can't decide what the hell we want to make the bike out of. And then we'll talk
about the hybrid period.
Okay, because we kind of skipped aluminum. Like it went from steel to
the two metals.
Aluminum.
Yeah. Well, aluminum's a metal. I should say the
two similar metals, but in kind of the chronological order of popularity, it went steel to
then aluminum.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
And then
it went from
titanium.
steel to aluminum. So we jumped chronologically when we went to titanium.
Yeah, we probably should.
That's okay.
Flip them around.
No, we're fine.
Okay.
It's totally fine. It made sense from a metal standpoint, but now I'm turning us back in time. Steel was popular. Aluminum started to become popular. Why?
We could say it the other way. Aluminium.
No, we cannot. We are not English. I'll be adding Adidas right after that. Okay. Tell me about aluminum.
All right. So aluminum came in the 80s.
Yes.
And at first, I'm sure somebody was experimenting in the 70s, but let's just talk production bikes, right, in the 80s.
When Steve started lusting off after them in the 80s.
Right. Actually, definitely in the 70s, but not really. Consumers were not really buying until the 80s. And at first, so there were a couple brands like Allen and Vetus that made aluminum bikes out of skinny aluminum tubes, like the same size as steel. And into lugs that they bonded together. So basically glued the aluminum tubes into cast aluminum lugs. And while I'm mentioning they're glued in, typically any of the frames where the tubes are glued into the lugs, often that glue is, I'm going to use the generic term glue, but usually that's stronger in many cases than the tube itself. So
if it's going to break, it's not going to break
usually
at the bond.
it did not break at the bond.
Okay.
I'm not going to say people didn't have that, but usually didn't.
Right.
So, but because those tubes were so skinny, those things were noodles. All right, so that's what you would describe them as a noodle. They were very, very flexy, right? So you'd get up out of the saddle and you'd have significant sway of the bottom bracket laterally to, say, the top tube.
Well, that doesn't sound very comfortable or fun or safe.
Well, it was, comfortable, I suppose. It would be very comfortable, but
I was thinking swing.
yeah, it just didn't feel like an efficient bike in that regard.
Okay.
And then Cannondale came along and made those massive aluminum tubes.
Okay.
Right? And it was the size of those tubes which gave it the rigidity. So, and I mean, boy, like when you saw a Cannondale back in the day and the down tube was just the size of a beer can, it looked odd to everybody. I mean, it was completely different.
Yeah.
But it brought the stiffness back into the frame. As it turns out, it brought too much stiffness because those bikes also rode then harshly.
Okay.
They were too stiff.
Got it. So there was a process of figuring out the right circumference.
Yes, and the right alloys as well, because there are a lot of different alloys of aluminum. You can mix a bunch of different stuff, and so generally there's 6,000 series and 7,000 series that are used in bikes, but then there are different variations of those within the 6,000 and 7,000 series that are used.
Does aluminum, do they do the same thing that they do for steel and titanium, like shaping them or
absolutely.
Drilling them?
That can be, it can be butted, it can be shaped. Aluminum is usually highly shaped. And now there's also a thing called hydroforming. So they're basically using high pressure water to form the tubes and shape them in the way they want, get the butting the way they want, any sort of spiraling or anything like that.
Okay.
And so for instance, you would ovalize the tube at the bottom bracket, usually so it's wider left, right.
Oh, so it doesn't have to be a straight tube. It
exactly.
They can shape it into whatever they want for aerodynamics.
And that oval resists left, right lateral forces as you're cranking out of the saddle more than the round tube would.
Okay.
And then, of course, they had to then pinch the tube at the head tube in order just to have it fit against a head tube because forks and stems didn't change. So they had to sort of maintain the same head tube size. So the tube had to pinch down to that head tube.
Are we primarily talking about road bikes that this was all happening in, or were mountain bikes following the same kind of
No, we can talk, both road and mountain.
Okay.
Yep. Certainly more road because mountain bikes were really just sort of coming into it in the late 80s.
Yep.
But more road.
And aluminum is lighter?
So aluminum has the corrosion resistance. It's not going to rust on you.
Okay.
And it is really light.
Yep.
So then we can get into...
And we should say, when we're talking about corrosion, we're really just talking about the frame because there's still other metal bits on these bikes that
Yes,
can
we're just
corrode.
talking about the frame.
We are just talking about the frame.
Mm-hmm. So all of these bikes, all of these metal bikes, so the steel and the titanium and aluminum, they all have fatigue limits. And so you can think about this, think about a paper clip. Okay. And if you take a paper clip and you start bending it back and forth and back and forth, and then it snaps, right?
Yes.
That is basically what we're talking about with the fatigue. And so all frames flex and twist and bend in small amounts constantly as you're riding them. And so what you're doing is you are just like a paperclip, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Okay.
And aluminum, that fatigue resistance is very low. So they will crack over time
Okay.
And after really actually sort of a certain amount of use, that aluminum just has hit the fatigue point and will crack.
Is there
So they're not lifetime
certain
frames.
areas of an aluminum bike that are more prone to the cracking?
Usually it's the junction up by the head tube.
Okay.
So where the down tube meets the head tube, and in fact, a lot of times you'll see gusseting under there, which is basically another extra piece of metal welded underneath.
Yep.
But it can happen anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. And steel and titanium also have a fatigue limit. It's just very, very high, and usually people will never reach it in their lifetime.
Right. Yeah. Which is why maybe there are more old steel bikes kicking around than there are old aluminum.
Yeah. Like an 80s Cannondale, don't buy a used Cannondale from the 80s or 90s.
Okay.
Because you don't know how much it was used.
Right.
And yeah, its life could be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bikes I keep saying getting traumatized. Mm-hmm. Bikes have moments where they have been hit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's because you ran it into your garage. Mm-hmm. Of course, you did that and damaged the car. Bikes were fine.
Right.
Or another rider hits you from behind, or you crash.
You just crash. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we talked about steel is quote unquote fixable.
Yep.
Titanium, we have 2 bikes we know of that are fixed, fixable. How fixable is aluminum?
So aluminum is not fixable.
Okay.
You cannot fix an aluminum frame.
Okay.
And so the reason for that is because of the properties, the heat treatment of the aluminum, and then the way it's welded. So it actually has to be welded, I believe it's TIG welding, and it has to be done in an oxygen-free environment.
Okay.
And you can't...
So not in my garage.
So if you apply heat to, say, re-weld a new tube in, you ruin the heat treatment of the tubes next to it.
Got it.
And then, so that's why it can't be fixed. The aluminum tends to be quite thin, those big fat tubes.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if you hit it on something hard, aluminum will tend to dent easier than titanium or steel.
Okay.
If I were to go just by my sort of history and knowledge of seeing things, I would say steel is the most resistant to denting, then titanium, then aluminum.
Okay.
In terms of that. Now, a lot of times a dent in a frame is no big deal. The frame is perfectly fine to ride.
Yeah.
There are times, depending on where the dent is and how big the dent is, where it could be unsafe.
Right.
You've compromised the integrity of that tube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which brings us to carbon.
Well, we're going to let's talk about the hybrids.
So the hybrids.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Let's talk about hybrids.
Okay.
So you have a bike downstairs.
Yes.
It's an old Le Mans.
I've got multiple hybrids in the house.
Are they all the same kind of things?
No, all 3 different.
Tell me about your hybrids.
Right. So when companies were going to aluminum,
okay,
that was still a little bit expensive. They didn't quite have the expertise and so forth. I mean, again, Cannondale was sort of at the forefront of that.
Yep.
So my first bike that I have was from about the hybrid one was about 1987. So it was a Raleigh Technium, a name many people might be familiar with.
This is in our house right now?
It's in our house right now.
Okay,
So
awesome.
the Raleigh Technium was a bike made out of aluminum tubes for the main triangle. So the top tube, the seat tube, and the down tube were aluminum tubes.
Okay.
They were straight gauge aluminum.
Yes.
All right. They were bonded into chromoly steel lugs with chromoly rear end with the seat stay and the chain
Is this the
stays.
bike Anders is riding?
Yep.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
You converted it into an e-bike. Okay. So great. Why did they do that?
So this was a case of trying to meet a price point but also making the bike lighter.
Got it.
Right. So it was sort of, okay, here we now aluminum is coming up. People are looking at want aluminum bikes, maybe. Let's do this thing. And this was actually made in Washington State using Boeing tubes by, I believe, it's a Raleigh. That's
right.
Right. And I believe by Boeing employees, I believe.
How old were you when you bought this?
14, 13.
Wow.
15.
Okay.
14 maybe, yeah. So this is where companies started to mix metals.
Right. Okay.
And then
And what did you think of that? Like what
well,
did that work out? Did that do what it was supposed to do?
These tubes are fairly skinny.
They are. It's a pretty
and
skinny
when we
bike.
talked about the skinny aluminum tubes, this bike, it rode quite nice, but it's kind of a noodle. It has very little stiffness, lateral stiffness.
It's perfect for what it's being used for right now, which is for our son to commute
Kick
back
around,
and forth.
cruise, commuter bike.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Then as we started to get to the carbon age in the 90s,
Yes.
this is where carbon was expensive. But some companies were starting to make full carbon fiber bikes, but it was very expensive. The expertise wasn't there.
I was gonna say we haven't talked about carbon yet.
Yep.
Should we talk about carbon now?
No, we're gonna continue with the hybrid so we can move into carbon.
Got it.
So what came out first is not the unique shaping abilities that we have with carbon now, where you are basically creating whatever shapes you wanted in a mold.
Okay.
You had carbon tubes, and that's it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Well, limited shaping. So what companies started to do was use a little bit of carbon in their steel or aluminum frames in order to part of it was marketing. Part of it was because engineers want to engineer, you want to tinker, and you want to try different things. So the carbon was bonded in to the other frame materials. So I have two Le Mans. One is
we adopt them like puppies.
Yeah, one is carbon. It's a carbon rear end. So
yes.
The seat stays and the chain stays are carbon. This was fully painted, so it's a little hard to tell.
Okay.
Into an aluminum front triangle.
Oh, is that the baby blue one?
That's the blue and yellow one. Yep.
The blue and yellow one.
Yep.
I'm not sure I'm aware of that one.
Then I have a tête de course, which is that is carbon tubes in titanium lugs.
Yes, I'm aware of this one.
That is the bike is just unbelievable. It's unbelievable that they made that bike.
What is unbelievable about it? It's very pretty. I will say it's a good looking bike.
It's a lot of fabrication from this is when Trek owned Le Mans.
Okay.
And so to think that Trek made this bike. So it has a titanium head tube with extending lugs for the top tube and the down tube with cutouts in them.
Yes.
Sort of just decorative cutouts. Then they bonded in carbon tubes into that. But the whole upper spine is carbon. And this came from when Trek was one of the first to make a full monocoque, which is sort of one piece carbon frame.
Okay.
And they took sort of that upper portion of their one piece frame, and then you come down to the bottom bracket. Again, it's titanium, and you have titanium dropouts and a titanium seat stays with And so
is it like almost reverse of the other bike?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. And how did it ride? How does it ride? How did it ride at the time?
That rides phenomenally.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the ride on that.
You still ride that bike?
The only problem with that bike is that it was made in an era where 23 millimeter tires were the norm.
Right.
And nobody was riding anything bigger.
Right.
And so that's all it fits. And so if it were to fit 28 millimeter tires, it would be sublime.
And that's really not something you can do because that's a whole
can't.
brake situation.
Yeah. No, it's just
Okay.
the frame clearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then as the expertise became better, you then started to see more and more that sort of hybrid two metals went away, and everything became single material. And
Got
and you got into the full carbon frames, which
Carbon.
we can talk about
Which
now.
is
in
carbon, right?
Yeah.
The high end. Is carbon really a high end material? Like, is
Carbon
that...
is you would probably consider it the highest end material.
Yeah.
Some could argue that custom titanium is the highest end material.
Yep.
But that's
So how do they? You alluded to it. How do they make carbon frames?
you can still, and there are still companies that make carbon frames by bonding carbon tubes into carbon lugs.
Okay.
All right, in that sort of old process. And so Colnago is a big Italian company. I believe they were really well known for making the lug carbon.
Okay.
And Look was another one who made lug carbon. And both those frames have just real big followers. Some people say that was the best.
Okay.
The best way to do it in terms of the ride feel. And I believe Colnago might even still make one lugged, but almost everybody's gone to basically a full mold process where you don't see any lugs. Technically, tubes can be joined and so forth, but you're never going to see that. Usually, it's all laid up in a steel mold, and often sort of halves of the frame, and then the two halves are bonded together in the middle.
So it's like, what is carbon? Like, what is carbon?
Yeah, what
fiber?
is carbon? That's a good question.
What is it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you think of a carbon fiber frame, some people might even just basically think of it as almost like a plastic. But carbon is a thread. It is a carbon thread. It is as fine as a thread.
Okay.
And they weave these threads into a fabric, and then that fabric is basically impregnated with resin. So a lot of carbon.
Is this like when they fiberglass the sides of boats
Yes.
or something?
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of that kind of process
it's
of
that
building
kind of process.
up. Okay.
So there is a carbon called pre-peg, which
Okay.
means is pre-impregnated with
Goop.
with resin. And so then that resin, because the whole thing goes into an oven to bake, and then that resin will then basically liquefy and then smooth out and then harden.
Wow.
But
Okay.
when you think about a carbon frame, it is not all just carbon. A significant amount of it is resin.
Okay.
And in sort of keeping all of the carbon fibers together.
Okay.
And the way that bikes are made with carbon is they're laying down those mats of carbon fabric in different orientations.
Like
so
a person?
a person
is doing this? Is every carbon frame handmade to some extent?
Basically, in a way, yes.
Wow.
They are very, very labor intensive, which is why most of the carbon manufacturing has left the United States and is elsewhere.
Right.
Because of the labor costs involved.
Okay.
Right. So it's layer upon layer upon layer, and then what's happening is they're laying down the carbon fibers in different directions. So if you think about a carbon, basically a carbon strand, it has, and you lay those out in one direction.
Yeah.
It's going to only have stiffness in a certain direction and not in the other. So you have to overlay in different directions in order to get the ride quality that you're looking for. And so nowadays that's done by computer analysis and modeling and so forth.
But there's still some person with just layers of carbon fabric who are following whatever this thing is and then applying shellac.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see them sort of laying in carbon, like laying a brush down with stuff, putting in a new layer of carbon.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why do we like carbon?
So carbon has almost all of the best attributes of all the other materials. So it does not corrode or rust or anything like that.
There's no metal.
It has infinite fatigue strength. So basically a carbon fiber frame is in a lot, people don't tend to think about it, but it is a lifetime frame in many ways.
Okay.
Because it's not going to...
It doesn't have the paperclip thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. it's super light, and it can be tuned to how the designer wants it to ride.
Tuned meaning stiffness.
Oh yeah,
or
we want it really
like,
stiff. We want it really compliant, or we want this part of the bike to be stiff, this part to be compliant.
Okay.
And it can be shaped any way you want. A lot of times that's just for how they want it to
right,
look.
Right. As long as it's still strong. But okay.
So the only downsides are the cost.
So the only downside, how does it take a hit?
Oh, so carbon is very, very, very strong.
Yes.
And it can take exceedingly high hits. A lot of times the same force of a hit that would dent all the other ones will do nothing to the carbon. But there is a basically point at which the force becomes so great that it will crack the carbon.
Right.
So it's either do nothing or crack it.
Right.
There's
no halfway.
It's
either I'm fine or it's catastrophic.
Yeah, well, but it can micro crack, and then those can spread, if you will.
Right.
So in some cases it can form
I just
small
remember
cracks that you don't know about, but
right. I just remember you had a customer who bought a carbon road bike, and he took it out for his first group ride, probably his first ride, and someone ran into him, another rider, in the back, and smashed the rear.
Yeah, I think the seat stay cracked.
The seat stay cracked.
Yeah.
Immediately.
He got hit hard and crashed, I believe, right?
I don't remember if he crashed or if he just got hit hard. I mean, he maybe should have crashed. I don't know if he did. Is it repairable?
Yes. That's the other thing. It is repairable.
Not by you, by special people like.
Yeah. Well, so here in Massachusetts, I send everybody to Hot Tubes.
Yes.
And they do a phenomenal job of repairing carbon. Not every brake is repairable, but most that we see are.
And how are they doing that? I mean, are they just rebonding it, or is he building it? Like, how does he do that?
Yeah, he's basically sanding down the area, applying carbon fiber to that area, wrapping it in different ways, right?
Yeah.
With pre-impregnated carbon, and then baking it.
Okay.
Right, and then finish sanding it, and that's So the bike has to be completely stripped down to nothing on it, the bare frame, because he's baking it. And
the whole frame, or just the whole frame? Just the whole frame.
The whole frame. Yep.
What if he bakes it with paint still on it?
Oh, it's not so high that it hurts the paint.
Okay.
So, and the repair can be quite reasonable in terms of the cost. It's the repainting part.
I was going to say.
So I've had a bunch of customers who are like, yeah, I don't care if that area is black now.
Yes.
Or you get lucky and that area was black to begin with, right?
Right. I was going to say, I've seen a couple of these bikes where the repair was done and they chose not to have it paint. It's almost like a badge of honor. Like it got fixed by Hot Tubes, right? But they do an amazing job of the repaints if that's what they
because their painting is phenomenal.
Is there any more materials you want to share?
There are other
bamboo.
There are other weird materials. Yeah, we can talk about just the other sort of weird materials.
Bamboo's cool.
There are bamboo bikes, right? Wood, we're going to put bamboo into wood.
Okay.
Wood is a composite material. Many people think about it like that, but it is a composite.
Okay.
It is sort of the nature's composite material. And wood is amazing. And you can make, nice bikes out of wood. They're heavy and you can't get quite
the more like just to say I can. Like I have a bike made of bamboo.
Yes.
Okay.
There are other alloys out there, so you can make bikes out of magnesium.
Okay.
And there are other, like you might hear of scandium. That's
scandium.
Yeah, it's another
sounds like
weird form of aluminum, I believe.
It's like it sounds like adamantium.
Yeah.
Like you're just making up words now. Right. Okay. So we talked about how bikes can break because of trauma, right? They get hit or we run them into...
Yeah,
yes.
So like the only time I've only had one customer whose carbon frame broke not from a hard impact.
Okay.
And that was the lightest carbon frame that this company made.
Okay.
Used by the professionals, probably for one season only, and then they got rid of them.
Yes. Disposable. Fantastic.
Yeah, and so a lot of companies will push the envelope on how light and thin they make these carbon tubes.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes what happens.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So there's trauma, which
Yep.
of course you can't avoid. That just happens.
Yeah.
And then there are manufacturer issues. You just started talking about one with this carbon.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you were talking about titanium the other day, and sometimes these cracks can form because through the manufacturing process.
Yeah. So both steel. Well, no, actually, all the three metals.
I do listen.
So all the three metals which are welded or joined, and there's also fillet brazing, but
Okay.
they're joined in a certain way using heat, and that heat can cause issues in the tubing, which creates a weak spot,
Okay.
and that's where they can fail.
So it could be a weak spot away from where the heat was, or kind of like adjacent.
Again, the where the tubes are joining,
yeah,
they have to apply the heat,
right?
And so you can actually get a weak spot in the tube that was joined,
okay,
at the connection, and that's where it can fail.
Okay.
So, and that's sometimes that's the fault, I suppose, of the welder. Other times it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there the thing I kept coming back to as we talked about frames breaking was what I, as a rider, should do to check my bikes? Like, how like, or should I be checking my bikes, or is my mechanic checking my bikes for cracks? Like, what?
Yeah,
for traumatic failures of the frame.
If you have a steel frame, then I would recommend every, couple of years to spray the inside with some sort of frame saving.
How would I do that?
Spray.
Do I just
well, you would actually pull a fork so you can get into the tubes through the head tube.
Okay.
A lot of steel frames have tiny little holes at the back end by the dropouts,
Okay.
and those are actually drainage holes, weep holes.
Oh.
And so you can actually kind of get a straw of a spray can into those to spray up
Okay.
in there, down through the C tube, obviously, up to the bottom bracket. You're just trying to get it to coat everywhere in there.
Okay.
Look for any rough spots. And other than that, you're probably going to hear a creaking or something if you have a crack.
Yep.
And, but I mean, if a steel bike is on the work stand, I'm not looking for cracks in it.
Okay.
My normal process of cleaning and working on things might find something, often will, but I'm not.
You're not
purposely
inspecting for
inspecting.
cracks.
No.
Okay.
I cannot think I've ever seen a failed steel frame.
I'm sure someone
There
has.
are certainly out there.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever encountered one.
Okay.
Okay, so titanium.
Yes.
So yes, titanium, people have definitely had failures. It is a much harder material to weld. It takes a lot more skill, a lot more technique. It is definitely a hard material to weld, and that's
so it maybe is a little more prone to manufacture.
And that's why,
cracks.
yes, and because of the heat treatment and so forth, the tubes, yes, it's just more difficult to not have issues that you can't see when the bike is completed.
And it can come up. I mean, some of these issues, it's not necessarily immediate, right? Like one of these bikes was several years old.
Yes.
Before the crack formed.
Yeah, one was many, many years old. And the other was, 5? And the other one was 2, I think.
Oh, okay. So neither of these, it's not necessarily instantaneous that they crack.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Right. It is a spot which now has a much lower fatigue level, and therefore it has to get to that point. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's got a weak paper clip.
Right.
Okay.
So the big thing about titanium is that it reacts with other metals. And in bikes, we use a lot of aluminum parts. And titanium and aluminum don't like each other.
Oh, that's fun.
There's a whole chart. You can actually compare how close metals are to each other on this chart, and then the further away they are,
mean
the
how
worse
friendly
they're going to
they
react.
are?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
Whole Shakespeare thing.
and this applies somewhat to steel, but more so to titanium.
Okay.
And so specifically seat posts. And it also reacts to carbon, funny enough. And it's probably reacting to the resin in carbon.
Oh.
All right. But
okay.
but seat posts and bottom brackets are the big things to watch for in titanium. So it's recommended that those get removed. Seat posts once a year to get grease.
Oh, okay.
And bottom brackets, I would say once every 3 years.
So the grease just creates a barrier between the titanium and the other.
Correct. I'm actually using an anti-seize compound, which is a form of grease with different materials in it.
Okay.
And that prevents the two from
arguing.
Yeah. It's called galvanic corrosion. So I have I've seen bottom brackets in titanium frames just where the only thing left were the outer cups that you can see visually, and all the aluminum screwed into the titanium had just become dust.
I was going to ask
powder,
who
oxide.
loses the argument between titanium.
Oh,
and
the aluminum loses.
The aluminum. So
yes.
the titanium frame was basically fine.
Yes.
It just ate the aluminum parts.
And you don't want your seat post to get stuck into your
how-
titanium frame.
This is how I describe things. Yeah. The parts are eating each other.
Right.
Okay. And how about, so that's titanium. How about aluminum frames? What should we do to, well, we've already decided they're destined to fall apart.
It takes a long time.
It takes a long time.
It takes a long time and thousands upon thousands of miles.
I was going to say, most of the women that I ride the PMC with
don't worry about your aluminum
on
frame.
Aluminum bikes.
Yes. Right? But their aluminum bikes are no more than 10, 15 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
At most.
Okay.
Right? And I wouldn't worry about that.
Got it. But is there anything they can do
at their ride rate
to either, is there anything they should be looking for on those aluminum, like how do aluminum frames break from fatigue? That's
just time. It's just
and
time
again,
and
it's
use.
in those places that we talked about.
Yep. And usually you'll start to hear a creak.
Okay.
Which is the giveaway. These metal frames don't tend to just catastrophically fall apart.
This is my question.
They tend to develop a crack, which then starts to propagate and get bigger and bigger. And the frame, and usually you're going to start to. This is why it's important to pay attention to weird noises on your bike.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Or as you wash it, you might notice.
So aluminum doesn't have a problem with aluminum bottom brackets. It's again, you have to grease them, and anything can stick to each other over decades.
Okay.
The biggest thing is about seat posts, aluminum frames. You want to make sure you kind of keep those greased.
And carbon.
So
how does carbon get along with aluminum?
Carbon actually does not get along with aluminum all that well. And again, I think it's the resins. So carbon itself is just neutral, right? It does not react with other things.
Like Switzerland.
And for the most part, the resins that they use are also very neutral.
Okay.
And they don't react with other chemicals. But you'll often see on carbon frames that are a couple decades old where they might have used an aluminum frame housing stop or something of that nature. That you'll see a lot of sort of bubbling of the clear coat around that, and a little bit of white. It's basically the aluminum is starting to oxidize.
And carbon. So in the argument, in the fight between aluminum and carbon loses?
No, carbon's still
Carbon's still fine.
Yeah.
It's the aluminum that's having. You just don't want this stuff to get stuck in there, is what I'm hearing, right? Like you want to be able to take these bits out, and if they corrode too much, they could get stuck.
Yeah, some of this though is also age and just aluminum's exposure to the elements over time as well.
Well, there is something about, just in general, we're talking about taking care of our bikes, right? Keeping them in a friendly spot, maybe not in your garage all year round for 50 years and expect they'll be fine.
A lot of garages can be fine, but yes, if you have a very humid environment in your garage.
Right.
I had one. I had this classic Pinarello.
Okay.
That had been sitting in a very, very damp basement for a decade.
Okay.
And it was destroyed.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
So
sad for
it rusted. It rusted out. Like it just the moisture just got to it from probably the inside out. But yeah, very sad.
It's very sad. Okay. And so carbon, if you do get in a crash, is there anything you should look for? I mean, obviously, obvious brakes, but is there anything you should be?
Yeah, so carbon is where you actually have to be careful of with a crash and impacts and so forth. While I said it's strong,
Yeah.
it's it is, I would say, also more susceptible in certain cases on the very thin parts. So, not a direct hit necessarily straight onto a tube.
Right.
Right. But the seat stays can often be very
ones in the
spindly and very thin.
Yes.
And so those are a weak spot for many carbon frames in terms of impacts.
Okay.
And carbon can fail sort of instantly and suddenly and catastrophically.
Okay.
A crack in the carbon it might be very minor that you can't see, and then suddenly it encounters a big force, and boom, the whole thing shears and goes.
Okay.
So this is where pay attention. It will creak again if you have a small crack.
Yep.
But this is where you sort of pay attention to any of those noises.
Okay.
And you know what? If you do crash on it, you really need to inspect it and look for cracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, feel it up.
The sound test is a big one.
What's the sound test?
So if you tap on the tubing,
Okay.
say with the end of a screwdriver,
Okay.
right? And you sort of get this dink, 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 dink. When you get near the crack, it'll be like more of a thud. So it'll be dink, 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 donk, dink, 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 right?
I'm making that my ringtone.
Now that tone changes as you get near the ends of the tubing, where it might be thicker, where it's joined with another tube. So you're really looking for that distinct tonal change.
Not like if it's gradually going from one end to and that feels like a normal progression, that's fine. But if it goes from ding, 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 thud, that's not fine.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and I, when we were talking about this topic offline, I said I had read an article called 6 Reasons Why Your Next Bike Should Be Steel. And you agreed that more bikes should be made out of steel.
Steel can actually be made quite light. Todd English is a guy who makes incredible steel bikes. Some of the craziest stuff you've seen out of steel, including very, very light stuff. It's inexpensive. It can be made, any way you want. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons why maybe steel should be looked at again for use in bikes. And it's recyclable. So I guess we could talk about that. So
how we
obviously
dispose of a broken frame.
Yeah,
How do you get rid of a
titanium.
broken?
I mean, metals are recyclable.
Okay.
Your aluminum bike frame will become soda cans in a couple weeks.
For a minute I thought you meant mine, and I was like, "What do you mean? We're not taking mine away." Hold on now.
I mean, aluminum is the most widely recycled metal in the country, right? It's easily done, and it's
I like that. Okay.
Carbon is not recyclable. There are companies who try to do it, and one could say we really should just be sending these to asphalt plants that get ground down and thrown into the asphalt batch mix.
Okay.
At least that would keep them out of landfills and so forth. But yeah, it's really not recyclable.
Huh. Interesting. No, I mean, I think I will admit, when I think steel, I think my Surly. My Surly is a big ass fat bike, so I don't think light. But it was an interesting article, and I think...
So Surly's tubes, I don't know who makes them. They do butt some of their tubing.
Yeah.
But these are not all the highest level of steel tubing in terms of trying to get it light.
Right.
Right. Which does take more expense.
Right.
To shape the tubes.
So a high-end steel bike wouldn't necessarily be an inexpensive bike, but
most of the time they're talking custom building, and that's why it's not, because you're getting it made to tailor to you.
But it could,
and that's why
could
it's
it be
cheap.
In the same price range as a custom titanium bike or a custom?
Well, custom steel is cheaper than custom titanium just because the material costs less, and this labor is the same. Actually, the labor is actually even a little less because the welding skill and the welding materials is less than the titanium. But
okay, is there anything else you'd like to talk about the materials on a bike? I feel much more informed.
Good,
I do.
I just pulled all of that out of my hat, so hopefully
that
was helpful.
That is not true. You pulled it out of years of experience and a deep curiosity that makes you read the entire internet all the time.
Right.
I mean, and I think it just shows the fact that that at some point you, as a teenage boy, was coveting a certain type of drilled steel. Fluted. Rifled, I think speaks to this not being entirely out of your tushy.
And I still, I still have a steel Lamond. That's made out of Reynolds 753, and which was their sort of best tubing set. And that bike rides just so nice.
Which one is that?
That's the baby blue one.
The baby blue one is steel?
Steel.
Huh.
All steel.
It's a beautiful bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See? So I'm going to go back to, you did not just pull this out of your ear.
I would like to see more. There are a few, but I would like to see more steel full suspension mountain bikes. I would love for more experimentation with that.
Is that a thing that you could DIY your own steel mountain bike frame?
Yes, there are home frame builders who make their own frames. There are for anybody who's interested, you can go take a frame building class and learn how to make a steel frame yourself.
Ooh, Christmas present.
It is that I
see a new category for Forged in Fire. Bicycle frames. Get on it, guys. All right, let's take a break and we'll come back with a couple of scene while scrollings.
Okay.
We haven't done scene while scrolling in a while, not for lack of scrolling.
Lots and lots of scrolling
going on around here. I'm going to just share some good news. I don't think there's a lot of commentary.
What'd you find?
That is going on with this, but I read an article that riding a bike is associated with a 19% lower risk of all-cause dementia and 22% lower risk of Alzheimer's disease compared with taking non-active travel modes such as a car, bus, train. And apparently, physical activity has long been associated with lower dementia risk in multiple studies. But the 2024 Lancet Commission identified it as one of 14 factors responsible for preventing or delaying approximately 45% of dementia cases. I am of the age right now where I do sometimes worry about my brain.
I mean, you keep those neurons firing, right? And they have to...
Right, so I'm doing my crossword puzzles now, and I'm doing... I tried not doing a great job of not doom scrolling, but it made me happy knowing that my bicycle might be protecting my brain.
Well, there's a lot of thinking going on when you're on a bike.
Yeah, it doesn't say why, other than just physical activity, but I do think just in general physical activity is just good. What do you have?
What do I have? Oh, I saw a Bike Radar article this week on our worst upgrades. And I thought, hey, you know what? It was interesting when I looked at that.
They asked like their writers, right? It was like 8 of their writers from Bike Radar, like looking back in time, what are some of the dumbest things you spent money on?
Yes.
Yeah,
and a lot of it is weight weenie stuff.
That was one guy.
I would say, fortunately, anybody who hasn't heard the term weight weenie, it's there's actually a really popular website called weightweenies.com, but it is all about the different parts and all the things you do to make your bike lighter. And as you make your bike lighter, the amount of money it takes to make it even more
lighter.
Yeah, even more lighter.
More
right?
lighter.
Even lighter. Just is exponential.
It's declining returns.
It's very, very
right? We talk about
returns.
this when buying bikes, right? Like you have like base bike, and then if you do $500 more, it can be huge difference, and $500 more dollars can be huge difference. But then you reach a point where you're like, okay,
$6,000 and $6,500, not a huge difference.
Not a huge difference. Really.
Same 500, very little difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So is it the same? It's the same with weight weenie type stuff.
No, I mean, no. It's just more that it costs a ton of money to start saving grams.
Right.
So once you've already started to save the big stuff.
Yeah. Is there a point where your bike can be too light for just everyday riding? I'm not talking about building a bike to ride up, say, Mount Washington. Like, I get that those bikes should be light, but like your day-to-day bike, is there just a point where you're like, this, I'm actually negatively impacting my experience?
I will bring up a other recent video I saw from GCN.
Okay.
Where they made a very, very light road bike with some of these really expensive weight weenie parts, and they took it to Alpe d'Huez to try to get this one guy to break the climb record.
Okay.
And the bike failed.
Basically. How did it fail? Fall apart underneath him like a cartoon character?
Were just too light. When I mean they're too light, they just didn't perform. They'd fail, they'd break, there was a case of, and I think they made a follow-up video, which I should watch. Can we make our ultralight bike rideable by changing a few parts and so forth?
Can we put some of the heavier parts back
on? So I guess theoretically, based on that, yes, you could be too light because you're down into carbon fiber chain rings, which are a millimeter thick and that kind of stuff.
It is like the first thing people do when, say, someone comes up to me and they're like, "Oh, I really like your bike." They'll pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's like the first thing.
Everybody in the shop
mountain
picks
bike
up bikes.
or my road bike or whatever. It's the first thing people do. And it's like, do we know what we're gauging for? We're just like, woo. That's so much. And people ask me, what is this weigh? And I'm like, I don't know. It weighs about this much. Yeah. So that's interesting.
I mean, the only other controversial thing that was in this one article about regrets is gravel helmets. One guy brought up a thing. He said, why for gravel do we all wear road helmets? So this guy was like, the brim on a mountain bike helmet is brilliant. It's keeping the rain out of my face. It's keeping the sun out of my eyes.
Yep.
Why are we using road helmets for gravel?
We've even started referring to road helmets as gravel helmets because we don't really sell road bikes, but we sell road helmets. So we started calling it that. Yeah. And I kind of agree with him because he was like, and I know someone reading this is going to yell, well, that's what little caps are for. Mm-hmm. But if I want the airflow of the helmet, I've ruined that with the little cap.
Yeah.
When he went on to say, gravelers, you've embraced mountain bike tech already. Disc brakes, grippy tires, tubeless setups, as I've been banging on for years. So now it's time to embrace a mountain bike helmet. My mountain bike helmet's a little aggressive for gravel. That's my only thing. It's kind of big.
See, that's my feeling too.
Yours in particular, because yours is the new enduro style.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of they're chunky. So we're going to just I need a hybrid helmet. I need a helmet.
We need a
with
road helmet with a little brim.
with a little brim, and not that dumb thing Scott put on one of them. It was like just a little.
It's a little clip-on brim.
Little band.
It's not big enough to be useful, but actually, if they extended
exactly,
it,
just
then it
a little
would actually
bit.
be really good.
This is when we need
that's
a 3D printer. Oh, shite.
That would be perfect.
Who do we know with a 3D printer? You're absolutely right.
Uh-huh.
Wait, is that the helmet? No, that's not the helmet I wear. That's the other.
Because that's otherwise a great helmet. And
it's just this stupid little headband that you just lose. But if it was just a little bit bigger.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Look at us inventing something
that.
right here. All right. Well, I think that's enough for this week because I got to get this edited and up. And we have 14,000 things to do before Unpaved. Cycling Together with Kristen and Steve is a production of Steve the Bike Guy, an independent bicycle shop in Eastern Massachusetts, and Sundin Marketing.
If you like the show, please leave a review or share with a friend. For show notes, links, or to leave a comment, question, or topic suggestion, please visit cyclingtogether.bike.
You can follow the shop on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at Steve the Bike Guy. Thank you for joining the ride.
All right, we'll see you next time.